त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्ये। ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या संप्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहित प्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ओम प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। Pranams everyone. We are in the second chapter, 11th Sloka. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashocyan Anvashocastvam Prajñāvādāmśra bhāshase Gatasu nagatasumścha Nānushochanti panditaha. So this is the start of the Gita Upadesha. So Bhagavan starts with this sloka. Arjuna is in deep grief, deep sorrow. He does not want to fight. He has given up and he wants to run away from the battlefield. And then Bhagavan starts with this sloka saying, Ashocyan Anvashocastvam. You are grieving, Arjuna, for those who should not be grieved for. Asocyan means those who shouldn't be grieved for. And Prajñāvādāmśa bhāshase. You are speaking the words of wise people as though you are wise. Gatasun na gatasumscha Nānushochanti panditaha. The wise people do not grieve. Wise men do not grieve. Panditaha na anushochanti. And they do not grieve for what? Gatasun cha agatasun. For the dead and for the living. So wise men do not grieve either for the dead or for the living. So this is how Bhagavan starts his Upadesha, his advice. And from here, this is the from here until sloka number 25 are very important slokas. Very important within the not just within this chapter, but within the entire Gita itself. Now this sloka is the base sloka, and this sloka basically tells us few things. First of all, wise men do not grieve. And he said, neither for the dead nor for the living. And we constructed what is a wise man. Wise man here is supposed to be a jnani, an atma jnani. An atma jnani do not grieve for what? Do not grieve for. If wise men do not grieve, what does that mean? Then, so jnanis do not grieve, which means ajnanis will grieve. So that is our corollary that we take. Ajnanis will grieve. Then if ajnanis will grieve, then what is the cause for the grief? Ajnanam is the cause for the grief. If ajnanam is the cause for grief, then what will be the remedy for grief? Jnanam will be the remedy for grief. So what jnanam? Atma jnanam. So Atma Jnanam will be the remedy for grief. Now that's where we start. How can we see so many situations in our life? How can just be one solution that can actually take away all the sorrows? Because we see sorrows in various forms from various situations, from various people. How can this solution be the one common solution that can remedy or that can provide relief to all sorrows? So for that we took up what is known as a Prathama Malla Jnana. We picked up one particular sorrow which could be seen as something that is common for everyone, and that is death of somebody. And we sort of analyzed that death by itself does not give us sorrow. Death is only an incident, but only when the death happens to be of someone whom we know or whom we are related to or whom we find some relation to or whom we have some attachment, attraction, or when we are having some kind of feeling for that person, an empathy, then what happens is we feel the sorrow. So only when I put me or myself in that situation, or me or mine in that situation, I feel the sorrow. So the reason for sorrow is not, and if we just ignore death, if we chase any other situation, wherever there is me or mine involved, only there sorrow arises. So the cause for sorrow is not the situation, but the cause for the sorrow is me or mine being involved in that situation. So for me to remove the sorrow from a situation, I need not change the situation. The situation can remain as it is. I just need to remove me or mine from that situation. And if I do so, the situation becomes an incident. So, same way right now for Arjuna, Bhagavan is not going to stop Bhishma or Drona's death. He is going to merely remove the me or mine notion from Arjuna. So wherever there is sorrow, it is that either I belong to them or they belong to me. That feeling, if it is there, then that gives rise to sorrow. The next vichara we have to do now is, if me or mine is the cause for my sorrow, then who is this me? Who am I? And Shastras say that we have identified ourselves to the wrong I. What I consider to be I is wrong. And it has come out of an ignorance. I am ignorant about who really am I. In this world we have picked up so much knowledge, knowledge on so many matters. With the latest technology, all those things we have been able to pick up this knowledge. But one thing which we have not picked up, which is very needed, very necessary for our life, is who am I? Whenever I say I, do I really know who am I? That is what Shastras ask, that is what especially the Vedanta portion deals with it. Shastra says all Jivarasis have this ignorance. When whoever is born with this ignorance. And this ignorance has always been there. It does not have a beginning. Suppose if somebody says, when did this ignorance come? Ignorance doesn't come at a particular time. Ignorance is always there. Ignorance is not born. Ignorance is always there. When I say I don't know to drive car, nobody can ask me, or I cannot answer, when did this I did not know to drive, when did it stop? It's always there. It is always there. Ignorance is always there. But the good thing is it can have an end. So every Jivarasi has this ignorance, the ignorance about self. Now, what is the consequence of this ignorance? Now why we are dealing this now is to relate how. When we say Atma Ajnana is the cause for sorrow, Atma or the individual self-ignorance is the cause for sorrow, then the question is, who am I? What is this self that we are talking about? And for that we have to start with what we already know. And what we already know is, I, as an individual, I have an understanding of who am I. But I also have this feeling that I know partially that I may not be the body, because we believe in, rebirths and, those kind of things. So this body is left behind. I take up another body. In that case, who am I? Am I really who? Is this the body, physical body? Is the mind is what I am? Or whatever, even if you say Atma is me, then who is this Atma? What is this Atma? How is this Atma? There is an ignorance about those things. So because of this ignorance, what happens is, Shastra says, Ajnanat Adhyāsa. This ajnana, this ignorance, it results in Adhyāsa. Adhyāsa meaning false superimposition. False superimposition. I take up something that is not me to be me. That is called as false superimposition. The most common example for false superimposition in Advaita Vedanta is the case of snake and rope. Many of us would know it, that in a kind of a evening where it is slightly dark, there are no lights, a person goes through a forest, on the path he sees a snake and it is not moving, he is getting afraid, it's getting darker, and then later on he comes to know it's actually not a snake but a rope. So what has happened now is, we see the snake on the rope, and that is because of our ignorance. So ignorance has caused this false superimposition. The snake has been falsely superimposed on the rope, and that has happened due to our ignorance. We are not ignorant, we do not have the real knowledge on the rope, and therefore we have falsely superimposed snake on that rope. So this is known as Adhyāsa, superimposition, false superimposition. So the rope's existence is borrowed by the snake. In other words, the snake by itself cannot exist. It exists only because the rope exists. If I remove the rope, there is no snake. So the snake's existence is borrowed from the rope. But what has happened, the rope by itself also, the nature of the snake being poisonous, being deadly, being dangerous, that nature of the snake is given to the rope. Because right now actually it is a rope, but now we see that as a snake, because of which I get this feeling that that rope or that object there, that thing there is deadly, poisonous, dangerous, and due to which we get fear. We are unable to move, we are stranded. So that fear as an emotion is caused due to the Adhyāsa, superimposition. There are other examples in Vedanta as well. The other example that is given is basically when someone sees silver or they say in the pearl shell, a drop of water in a moonlight will look like silver within the shell. And there some people get fooled by that and they run towards the shell to pick it up so that they can take that silver out of it. So again, that is a false superimposition. So the false superimposition can create all kinds of emotions which are not otherwise wouldn't be there if we had known what is the truth. So this pravritti and nivritti. Pravritti means going after, nivritti means going behind or getting away. So this world is all about pravritti and nivritti. We go after certain things, we want to avoid certain things. That is what we want to do the entire lifetime. We want to achieve certain things, we want to be away from certain things. We go behind joy, we want to be away from sorrow. We want to be comfortable, we want to be away from discomfort. This is samsara. And this is due to Adhyāsa, false superimposition. Now coming back to ourselves, so we say we are ignorant about our real self. And due to this ignorance, what we do, we falsely superimpose something which is not me onto me. And I take that superimposition to be the self. This is what we do. And this false superimposition of what is not me onto me now creates an Abhimāna. Abhimāna meaning identification, self-identification. So this Adhyāsa, this false superimposition results in Abhimāna, that I am this body and mind. In this case, that is the false superimposition. I take this body and mind to be I. And because of this false superimposition, because of this false identification now, comes raga-dvesha. Raga-dvesha meaning attachment and aversion. Because I am there, I like certain things, I dislike certain things. I have attachment towards certain things, I have an aversion towards other things. So the raga and dvesha comes out of this Abhimāna. And once raga comes in, we know from chapter 1, Arjuna had this raga, attachment. From attachment comes Sloka, and from attachment comes moha, delusion. Sorrow and delusion comes automatically. We saw that how it comes in the first chapter. So this is how samsara comes in. So this is the cause for sorrow. So if we have to map it out, from ajnana, from ignorance came adhyāsa, superimposition, false superimposition. From false superimposition resulted in Abhimāna, false identification. And that Abhimāna resulted in raga-dvesha. And that raga-dvesha resulted in Sloka or sorrow. So if we do, what is the cause for sorrow? Attachment and aversion. What is the cause for attachment and aversion? False identification. What is the cause for false identification? False superimposition. What is the cause for false superimposition? My ignorance. So what is the root cause of sorrow? If we take it as, the root cause of sorrow is ajnana, ignorance. And we say, but I don't feel it that way. I have this sorrowful situation. This sorrow is created by this person, or that particular situation, or this particular person's words, or that person's attitude. We see various reasons, but we are not able to see ignorance. Why? Because ignorance is the root cause, and the root is never visible. In a tree, the roots are not visible. The tree stands tall because of the roots. A building stands tall because of the foundation, and the foundation is never visible. The roots are always hidden. The foundation is always below ground. We will never be able to see it. We will not be able to appreciate it. In the same way, the sorrow that we get, it comes out of Adhyāna, and the Adhyāna is the root cause, but we are never able to acknowledge, understand, appreciate it. So whenever we get sorrow, or whenever we get into some kind of trouble or painful situation, we do not see the cause, which is Adhyāna, as the cause for samsara. And that's why we do not recognize it. And because we do not recognize Adhyāna, we don't take any effort to get over that ignorance. And only if we get over that ignorance, we will be able to get over that Adhyāsa, get over that Abhimāna, cross over raga-dvesha, and get relief from samsara or Sloka. But instead what we do, we leave the ignorance bit and we try to change the external situations. We try to see if we can change the other person. Or if we try to see if we can change house, or we can move, change jobs, or change our lifestyle, or buy another house, get a new car, whatever. We try to change the situation to be able to remove our sorrow in life. And it's not that it should not be done. Shastra does not say that you should not try to change the situation. We can, we should, wherever possible. But what we need to understand is, when we try to change, we may get the result, we may not get the result. So do not bet everything on it. Or even if you get the result, it may be only a temporary relief. Because there are other factors that come in, which we know, that is called as karma, prarabdha karma is there. So many things come into play. So when we are trying to alter the situation, we can get relief, but only temporary relief. So remember, when we started this chapter, we said there are actually two problems: fundamental problem, topical problem. Every situation has two problems: topical, fundamental. And only this fundamental problem, it appears as various topical problems to us. So every one of us have this problem of Adhyāna. And this Adhyāna appears as various causes, various topical problems in various situations. But the root fundamental problem is Adhyāna. And Adhyāna is the cause for sorrow. And that is the point that Bhagavan wants to make when he says, wise men do not grieve. Jnanis do not grieve. So Ajnanis will grieve. So Adhyāna is the cause for sorrow. That is the point that Bhagavan wants to make here. This is very important to know, because this is the basis of the entire Bhagavad Gita, or entire Vedanta Shastra also. So what is Bhagavad Gita for? Bhagavad Gita is for Shoka Nivritti. It is not for teaching you Karma Yoga, it is not for teaching you Jnana, it is not for teaching you meditation. Bhagavad Gita is a text for removing sorrow. So next question, how is it going to do Shoka Nivritti? How is this Ajnana, or how is this Jnana be able to remove sorrow for me? So Bhagavan here is not going to change the situation to give any dukkha nivritti, shoka nivritti. For Arjuna, the impending death of Bhishma and Drona in this war is the cause for his sorrow. That is the cause for his sorrow. He has already very clearly explained that. After Bhagavan completes this Upadesha, after 18 chapters, after about 700 slokas, the situation will continue to remain. Bhishma and Drona are going to die. The situation will not be altered by Bhagavan. But Arjuna is going to say, in 18th chapter he will say, Nashto mohaha. My delusion is gone. So this is very important, because the beauty of Vedanta is it does not change the situation. It only changes the mindset of the person facing the situation. The situation will remain an incident. The situation itself will not cause sorrow. Why the situation will not cause sorrow? Because Vedanta will remove this mindset that the situation is what is causing me sorrow. That mindset is removed. And the sorrow is removed not because of the change in situation. The sorrow is removed because the mind becomes a shock absorber. The mind can take any amount of shock. If a person criticizes us, it will not get bothered. If a person praises us, it will not get bothered. Especially if we come to class, there will be more criticism at home. Who will come? Who will do work at home? What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? And how is this going to help us in what we need to do in our daily lives? All those questions will come. But because of this knowledge, the criticism, the scoldings, whatever ninda we will get, that will not affect us. It will be merely words for us. Our mind will not be affected by sorrow. We will be able to sleep. We will not have any trouble. The mind will be calm. So the Gita Shastra has two benefits. What is the first benefit? In this Sloka it's plain method. First one is Shoka Nivritti. Shoka Nivritti meaning removal of sorrow. How we say? Na anusochanti. Na anusochanti. So the question is, Gita Shastra helps us in removing Sloka. Now the question comes, some people say, oh, why are you going to Gita class at this age? You should go at a later age when you are retired. Now, right now is not the time for you to go to Gita class. Now the question is, when do you want your Shoka to be removed? After you are retired? After 60 years? Because many people think Gita is only for retired people, no? So, do we want our Shoka to be remaining in our lives for the first 60 years of life, and I would come and attend to it after 60 years of life? It's a question we need to ask ourselves. Gita Shastra is needed whenever the intelligence starts to function. Whenever we have this cognitive ability to understand, I think Gita Shastra can start. So, first benefit is Shoka Nivritti. The second thing that Gita Shastra does is it gives us the sadhana and it provides us the knowledge about Atma. So for Shoka Nivritti, it says Atma Jnana is the sadhana. Panditaha na anusochanti. So the entire Shastra is in these 2 points. Shoka Nivritti, and what is the sadhana for Shoka Nivritti? Atma Jnana is the sadhana. So what is the solution and how do you arrive at the solution? Both are given in this Sloka. And the entire Gita Sara is given in these 2 points. And this Sloka covers both these points. And this is the essence of Gita. We should not forget. If somebody asks what is the essence of Gita, what is Gita Shastra for? We say Shoka Nivritti and Atma Jnana is the sadhana for Shoka Nivritti. So Gita Shastra provides the knowledge of self. And by providing the knowledge of self, Gita Shastra removes the sorrow that one feels. And if sorrow is removed, the mind is calm, the mind is peaceful, and that is moksha. And that is the final Purushartha. Purushartha, we know, human goals. The 4 human goals, Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha. Moksha is the Parama Purushartha. And for moksha we say Ananda Prapti. We say reaching Ishvara, some people say. Attaining Ananda. We say Satchit Ananda. So moksha is Ananda Prapti. And how do you get Ananda Prapti? By removing the Shoka. So this is the key thing that we have to understand from this sloka. Now if we just go back to the sloka again after understanding this vichara, you will see Ashocyan Anvasochastvam. Tvam, you, Anvasochaha. You are grieving. You are grieving Arjuna or he is addressing to us also. We are grieving. On whom are we grieving? Bhagavan says Asocyan. For those who should not be grieved for things that are not worthy enough to be grieved for. Prajna Vadamsha Bhasase. You are speaking the words of wise people. You are speaking like a jnani. You are pretending to be wise. Gatasun, Agatasunshcha, Na Anusochanti Panditaha. Panditaha Na Anusochanti. Panditaha, wise men do not grieve. On what? Our wise men do not grieve for what? Bhagavan says, Gatasun cha agatasun. Gatasun for the dead and for the living. For one who has lost the prana and for the one who has not lost the prana. And this is important. Why Bhagavan now has taken, why does he say Gatasun agatasun? He says not for the living, not for the dead. One reason is Arjuna is grieving for Bhishma and Drona, or he is grieving that Bhishma and Drona would be dead soon. So he is using that as an example and saying that neither for the dead nor for the living. Another thing is, there is something called Pratama Malla Jnana. We take one reason and then try to, one most common reason for sorrow, and then we try to analyze that. See, in sorrow we have to understand this. Let us say, take a situation, right? If one of our friends this person has lost his parent. At that time when we go there, we expect him to be in sorrow. We expect him to be crying. This is what we expect, right? When we go there and when we see this person, we will be shocked. If he is laughing, if he is talking with others, we will not be able to accept that. As for us, even if we do not know the person, or even if we are not impacted by that sorrow, when we go there, we will try to keep a grim face, right? We will go there with a grim face, we will not laugh, we will not crack any jokes. Even by mistake, we will try to keep a very sober face. So this is one. So we expect the person who has lost his parent to be sad, crying, to be in sorrow. We ourselves also, we would expect us to behave in that manner. Now, say another scenario. If this person, who is again about 30-40 years old person, this person has bought a balloon for his child. And this balloon bursts. While he is trying to bring this balloon to his child, the balloon bursts. Now, if this 30-year-old person starts crying, will we be able to accept it? No, we will not. We'll say, how do you? At that time, we'll say, Ashochan anvashocastvam. You are crying for something that is not worthy enough to be crying for. We will advise that way. Ashochan anvashocastvam. Take the third scenario. There is a 3-year-old child who has lost his mother, but it is playing with the toys and laughing and going on with its things. Will we be able to accept that? Yes. We will have no problem with that. So what does it say is, we have certain situations with regards to life. We have certain standards. For certain standards, certain situations, these situations one must feel sad. In these situations, one must not feel sad. So these are standards given by us, set by us. So if a 30-year-old man cries because he has lost his parent, will we take that person to a psychiatrist? No. But at the same time, if this 30-year-old person cries for the sake of a balloon, then will we take him to a psychiatrist or psychologist? Yes. And the doctor might even give some medicines for him. But for the other person, the doctor will say, no, there is no need for medicine, just cry and take it out. This is how psychology operates. In Vedanta, what Bhagavan says is, he basically takes a situation which is considered to be a valid reason to cry, a valid reason to feel sorrowful, which is the death of grandfather, the death of my guru. And Bhagavan says, Jnanis do not cry over this. And Jnanis will not feel sad about this situation. That's what Bhagavan does. And this is the difference between psychology and Vedanta. Psychology gives solution to the problem. Vedanta does not give solution. It removes the problem. It just says there is no problem in the first place. And this is addressed through the Prathama Malla Jnayam. What is Prathama Malla Jnayam? Okay. Suppose if you want to beat, or if you want to become the world's best chess player, do we need to play all the chess players in the world, beat them to become the world best chess player? No. What we need to do is, we pick up who is the current world best chess player, and then beat that person in a game of chess convincingly. And by beating that person convincingly, it is as good as beating everyone else, or winning over everyone else. And therefore, arriving at saying, I am the best chess player in the world right now. In the same way, Bhagavan has taken a situation which is commonly agreed to be a sorrowful situation. Death in this case. And says, even in this situation, a jnani does not get sorrow. Gatasum na gatasumsha na anushocanti panditaha. So a jnani does not become sad even in this situation, which means a jnani does not become sad in any situation. That is what he is trying to establish. And that is where we need to change our approach as well. Generally what happens when we get into a difficult situation, we try to change the situation. Because we think the situation is the cause for sorrow. But after coming to Vedanta, we know the fault is not in the situation. The fault lies with me. The fault lies in me. Someone humiliates me. Someone criticizes me. Or I am in financial trouble. I am jobless. Or I am in many difficult situations. I have trouble from in-laws. I have trouble from colleagues. I have trouble from relatives. I have trouble from friends. I have whatever be the issue. How do we need to approach them? What we need to do is, the cause for my sorrow depends on how I take that situation. The situation itself cannot be the cause for my sorrow. So, Bhagavan is using the Pratama Malla Jnayam. Basically, what is considered to be a common cause for sorrow, and says Jnani does not feel sad on account of a dead person or a living person. And he has put both Gatasun, Agatasun, for both the living as well as the dead, for both the dead as well as the living. The Jnanis do not get sorrow. So by Jnanis, what do we need? A person who has Atma Jnana. And when you say Jnanis do not get sorrow, Jnani means Atma Jnana is important. By not getting sorrow, which means we can get dukkha nivritti. So we combine this, Jnanis do not get sorrow. From there we can say Atma Jnana gives dukkha nivritti. This is Gita Saram. What is Gita Saram? Atma Jnana gives dukkha nivritti. The knowledge of self removes sorrow. Self-knowledge removes sorrow. This is the essence of Gita. Now from here we can get multiple doubts, questions here. What is Atma? How does Atma Jnana remove dukkham? Then what is it that I consider myself to be? What is this Atma? How is this Atma? Can I see this Atma? All these questions will come. We will see them detailed, especially about Atma from next Sloka 12 to 25. So, these are important Slokas. So, if we just need to recap quickly this Sloka is very important. Bhagavan takes up death, which is universally accepted to be the cause for sorrow. Then he does a vichara, or rather we do a vichara to say that death by itself cannot be the cause of sorrow. But death of someone, or the death where we are involved, either through a relation or some knowing or something. So if me or mine is linked, we get sorrow. So to remove that sorrow, I don't need to change the situation, I need to remove me or mine from the incident. And what is me or mine? Who am I then? Question is, every Jivarasi has this ignorance of the self. And what is this consequence of this ignorance? The consequence of this ignorance is basically Ajnana Adhyāsa. There is a false superimposition. And the Adhyāsa is the result of this ignorance, and this Adhyāsa will result in Abhimāna, which is basically false identification. And Abhimāna results in raga-dvesha. Raga-dvesha, from raga-dvesha we get Sloka or samsara. And that is explained through the snake rope example. How is the snake being falsely superimposed on rope? Due to ignorance. The rope's existence is borrowed by the snake. The nature of the snake is borrowed given to the rope, and that causes us samsara, fear. And so how do we tackle this samsara? We traditionally or by nature, by what we are doing today is, instead of removing the ignorance, we try to change the external situation. And while we are trying to change the external situation, not every attempt is successful. Even if we are successful, the relief is only temporary. So from there we can arrive at, there are two problems, one the fundamental problem and then the topical problem. We are addressing only the topical problems, we are not addressing the fundamental problem. The fundamental problem being ignorance of self. And Bhagavan says, Jnanis will not cry over what is considered to be the most painful situation. And by saying so, Bhagavan says, that is, the situation is not the cause for sorrow. There is no problem in the first place. There is no solution to the problem because there is no problem at all. It removes the problem. And therefore, Atma Jnana gives Dukkha Nivritti. This is Gita Saram. One small example to give you, when I say there is no problem at all in the first place. When we remove me or mine from the situation. Imagine if we have, there is the story of, a person who is coming from one village to his hometown and his own village. And from a distance he sees that his house is on fire. So he gets panicky, he is so deep in grief, he runs towards his house. He sees the house is full burning, but he sees his parents, his brothers and all of them are actually, this entire family is standing outside the house. He is relieved to see them safe. He also sees them smiling. They don't seem to be affected by it at all. And then when you ask them why they are not affected, because the house is burning, they said, oh, we have sold the house. The house is not ours anymore. So imagine the same house, the situation is the same. But just because I am not involved in it, it does not affect me anymore. So this is how Vedanta tries to prove that only when you are there, it affects, otherwise it doesn't affect you. And if you remove you or yourself from that situation, but we may say, how can I remove myself from the situations? After all, my children, my house, my car. And Vedanta says, no, what you say as I or me is wrong. And that is the cause for your problem. And that is what it will try to explain in the coming slokas as to who am I. So this is a short summary of the sloka itself, the vichara what we did in the last two classes. Now we will go to sloka number 12. Natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamah sarve vayamatah param natvevaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamah sarve vayamatah param. As I said, from Sloka 12 until Sloka 25, Atma Jnana is given. Or in other words, Bhagavan is explaining the Atma Swarupa. from 12 to 25. The only exception is Sloka 14 and 15. Other than that, 12 to 25 explains about Atma. And when we talk about Atma Swarupa, we should not think that Atma Swarupa is another object. It is a third person. It is just like another subject for us. No, it is not another subject, or rather it is the subject. It is me. It is about me. It is about I. Ourself, our real nature. That is what Atma Swarupa, when we talk about Atma Swarupa, we should understand. And why does Bhagavan gives Atma Jnana here? Because Bhagavan is introducing Atma Jnana or self-knowledge as a sadhana. From now on, whenever we say Atma, we should remember that it is, when we say Atma, it is ourself, ourself. Why does Bhagavan give Atma Jnana? We saw that, Shoka Nivritti. What is the relationship between Shoka Nivritti and Atma Jnana? Cause of Shoka is raga-dvesha, cause of raga-dvesha is Abhimāna, cause of Abhimāna is Adhyāsa, cause of Adhyāsa is Ajnana. So, to remove Shoka, Atma Jnana is necessary. And Atma Jnana is the saram, is the topic in all Upanishads as well. The entire Vedanta, when we say Vedanta, the end portion of Vedas, which is all the Upanishads, it's all about giving Atma Jnana. Whether you take Kathopanishad, Kenopanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, all these Upanishads talk about Atma. So we will come to know that this knowledge about self is no different from the knowledge about Ishvara. When we say knowledge about self, it is not different from knowledge about Ishvara. We will see that later. What is considered to be Jiva Ishvara Aikyam. We'll see that in later classes. But Atma Jnana has another name. Atma has another name called Sankhya. Samyak Khyayate Asmin, it says. That is why it is called as Sankhya is another name for Atma. That's why this chapter is called as Sankhya Yoga. This Sankhya is different from another Matam. Matam means, you can say, now it's used as religion. But there we used to say school of thought. Sankhya is a school of thought given by Kapila Muni. That is Sankhya is different. This chapter is called as Sankhya Yoga. Yoga meaning topic. Atma Jnana being the topic, so it's called as Sankhya Yoga. The first chapter was Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna's sorrow. Vishada means sorrow. Here it is Sankhya Yoga. So, in this chapter there are 72 slokas, out of which only 12 to 25 talks about Atma Jnana. After which Bhagavan talks about Karma Yoga and then Sthita Prajna Lakshana and all those things. But the main topic of this chapter is Atma Jnana and therefore this is called as Sankhya Yoga. And Bhagavan, if you see, the first Upadesha itself, Bhagavan straight comes to the point. He comes to the point of Atma Jnana. Later on only he gives the qualifications of what are the qualifications required for Atma Jnana, how do you get Atma Jnana, what are the prerequisites you have to do, what are the other sadhanas you have to do. All those things are given later. Upanishads mainly do not cover about the sadhanas other than Atma. It only covers about Atma, in focuses only on Atma. Whereas Gita is one Shastra which talks about the other sadhanas, prerequisite sadhanas that are required for a person to go through. until a person comes to Atma Jnana Yoga to know about Atma. So Bhagavad Gita is different in that way. It also gives us the other sadhanas, qualifications that one would require. So certain sadhanas are necessary sadhanas, mandatory sadhanas that one must perform for a person to be able to grasp, understand and assimilate this knowledge of Atma. So even when we are discussing between 12 to 25 all these Atma's qualities, there are certain things that may not be easily understood or grasped. And that is because we need to qualify ourselves to be able to understand and assimilate this knowledge. There are preparatory steps that also would be covered by Bhagavad Gita in the following chapters. So more about this, and we'll do vichara on this sloka in the next class. Any questions or comments? If not, we will see again in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om.